that's big one that we've been going to do for a long time. Carburetors. Why it's so important, and my way, not a how-to, my way of cleaning, going through and fixing them up. Through the video you'll see I've got boots on. Barefoot's gone on barefoot. After the crash in March I can't walk in bare feet very well. So busted ankle and sore feet still, so it is what it is. Why are carburetors so important? And why is it so important to have them running as a set? Basically, you've got 4 intakes for the air, you've got 4 intakes for the outside, you've got 4 little machines here mixing fuel, going into pistons, that you have 4 pistons, you have 4 spark plugs running, and you have 4 exhaust pipes. You have 4 engines. And running 4 engines at once, you have to have them running as close as physically possible to exact to get the best out of the machine. So we're going to go through and pull them down and bring them back. As we pull them down, we'll go through and show you which bits to clean, how to clean them, how to put it all back together, how to adjust it. But I thought, you know, these are pretty nice and clean, and it'd be really easy to see all the bits and how to work it. But I thought, why not? We might use this set. We'll use these. They are, in a word, disgusting and in need of a lot of love. So we'll rebuild these and get these ones running. So to save time and you sitting there doing nothing for hours, we'll take them out. You can clean them down. I'm just going to take them outside and we'll just belt the rough stuff off. Pressure cleaner or a bit of degreaser and a garden hose or whatever you want to use. We're not going to go on one of the barefoot garage theory of no money, no tools. So I'm not going to spend hours in a sandblasting unit to bring them up super pretty, because not everybody's got a sandblasting unit. So we're just going to go through with a bowl of petrol and a pressure cleaner or a garden hose and a brush and degreaser or whatever. So that's as clean as they're going to be on the outside. The inside will be clean, clean, clean. But again, no tools or a can of brake clean. But it will be enough to bring these things back so that they will run. So that's what we're going to do. And when we come back, they'll be a lot cleaner. So we give it a real rough wash down. Just enough to knock the rubbish off it. A lot of this is overspray by the look of it, all the black, because they're 78 carburetors. So we'll hook in and we'll start pulling it apart. I always start with your choke lever, so then you can lie the carburetors on the bench with your choke lever there, everything wobbles. So I remove my choke lever first, and then we can, as a bank, I go through and crack everything that holds it together while it's all assembled. It's just a lot easier to manhandle it. So if you've watched my videos often enough now, you will know these are Japanese carburetors. So they're metric. You need metric screwdrivers. So Vessel make a metric Phillips head screwdriver, which is why you chew the center out of your heads all the time if you're using a normal Phillips head driver, because it's not a Japanese industrial screw driver, it's a Phillips head screwdriver. The other thing, if you've watched a few videos or go into my videos and have a look at them, all the screwdrivers have been profile cut so that they fit square into the heads of screws. So the screwdrivers I'm using here don't have a bevel on them. They have two flat surfaces that fit neat into the head of the screw. That'll help you out untold. So we'll go through the tap. Also, the vessel also is a impact screwdriver. So when you hit the end, it actually turns like an impact screwdriver. So sometimes you do need them, and sometimes you don't need them. But that time we didn't need it. The other thing you need to be prepared for is, if you don't know the set of carburetors, sometimes they will still be Loctited together from factory. So these little tiny screws, you need to be aware that if they don't come first time, don't push them, because you will wreck them or shear them off, and then your job just got a lot bigger. Easiest way to unloctite a screw, there's your choke off, is your gas torch. Just heat the head of the screw. That's what we'll do in a second with these. So now that we've got the choke off, it will sit on the bench, no dramas, and with the help of a friend or family member, you can hook in and get all these undone, because they will take some doing. These big buggers are number 3 screwdrivers. So don't use your normal number 2 screwdriver, because it's not going to work. You just want to crack all of these. You can get a block of wood under this throat here if you wanted to make it a lot easier for yourself. But apparently I just find the hardest way to do it and do it that way. It looks, these kind of feel like they've got Loctite in them, but they're kind of coming undone all right. So yeah, we'll get them all out, so that's cool. As long as they are no, they've got Loctite on them, so we'll go through and head them off, because you don't want to screw the heads off. That's what will happen. So now we'll go through and tap the tops off. Center out of that one. So we need super fine, a really fine jewelry screwdriver. We should have done that first. Go through and dig all the crap out of the heads. That'll help as well. So you can either do that the same and wait for you to chew a head out, or you can do that before. Entirely up to yourself. So good. But now that this one's stripped out of the centre, going to need a little bit more love, so we're going to have to tap him back down the top to punch the centre back in. Phillips head screwdriver, even with a chewed out head, a Phillips head screwdriver won't do that. We'll heat them up.
Couple of the puppies.
Make sure these are dry should go without saying, but don't do this with petrol in them. And as a complete set of carburetors, you've still got to be a little bit careful because you've still got choke rubbers and that down inside, so you need to be careful which way you're pointing the flame to get the screw hot. Failing all of that, you just cut a slot in the top with a Dremel, which might be what we're doing. Got it. That one's buggered probably. Yeah, that's righto. It's got that one. I'll have to get a big screwdriver. Too big probably. Worst comes to worst, you just cut the. There you go. Cool. So that's all got them off. So we'll go through, separate the bank now that we've got that off, and then we'll come back to you. Yeah, we've got everything off, so it's just a matter of undoing all that. Just to itemise it. Well, it won't really matter the screws, but just keep them separate and so you know where everything is. We'll come back to you in 5. Just one thing while we're here. If you pull it apart, so sitting on when you're on the bike, this is number 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you put it on the bench like that, and you just keep rolling the carburetors over when you're working on them, everything will stay 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll know where you are. So this is what I'm saying about screwdrivers and cutting it, grinding them down, filing them down. A normal screwdriver, number one, will struggle to fill the head of the screw, and because it's tapered, it's just going to slide. When you lean on it, it's just going to drive itself out as you twist. So using the drivers that I've actually made, you grab it, just flick all the paint and gunk out of the head of the screw to start with, but the screw will fit nice and tight, and then you have that whole head of the screw on the driver and they'll come undone no problem at all. So it's just a matter then of putting it on the bench. Because they're so tiny, I just use a small shifter, and that way it just gives you a lot more purchase. So as long as you feed that in there, make sure he's nice and tight. And it just comes straight out with no hassle at all. And it's a lot easier. You still got to put a little bit of pressure on it to hold the driver in the head of the screw, but having that the head of the screw taken up, the power is delivered through the shank of the screw, not the head of the screw. So it just makes it a whole lot easier. So you just unscrew them out. Don't take them all the way out because they sit in divots. So it's just a matter of, I'll just come apart this way. Just undo them until you can move them. No, we've got to take it that way. It's all got to go that way. So these are going to be hard probably, so a little bit of little WD-40 in the areas where it's going to slide through, because it's got to slide out through the carburetor box, the bosses of the carburetors. So because they're all hooked onto the choke mechanism of the carburetors. I should have done this before I undone the cross braces, but look at it. So don't want to damage any of the screw heads, so you just put your shifter on there so you can manage it a lot better. Some of them, for whatever reason, are tight. Some of them aren't. As long as you get them so that they come out of their holes, and we'll bring the carbs over so you can show you what I'm talking about. So, how far have I got to come over, or do you want to come in the light?
No, you're all right.
So you can see, can you see the head of the screw, how it's so pointed and it goes down into a recess in the choke shaft? So you've got to lift your little screw out far enough that the actual choke shaft can slide through the whole assembly to come out. So you might be able to come this way. Now inside, when you take your end ones off, there'll be inside, I might need a torch, I don't know whether you can see, but inside them there's a small ball bearing, and there's a spring behind that ball bearing. Sometimes they have them, depending who's done the work previous to it, but the ball bearing is literally, I don't know whether can you see that? The ball bearing is literally that tiny little size. So keep an eye out for that. The indent spring will basically stay there because it's a lot tighter and full of crap, and is not likely to be coming out in a great hurry. So that seems to be working. Just keep everything 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep your carburetors all together. Comes apart. And then this one will come out that way. So that one, I got away with that, because when you went fling like that, half the time that little ball bearing will just go whistling off across the scrub. But as luck would have it, he is still in there, so that's good. Where'd that tiny little screwdriver go? Might be able to pop him out. There he is. So, there, all good there. So now they're all separated. Depending how old your carburetors are, wowzers, these are shot. It's full of gunk. But a lot of the times on an old set of carburetors, your OEM fuel tees, these two O-rings, so they're in amongst all the rubber of the moulding, they dry out and shrink. So if you put fuel in a carburetors that have been sitting for a long time, give them 24 hours, half the time these will take up, and then it'll stop leaking. But if you've got your carburetors this far apart, just put brand new tees in them, breathers and fuel, and then yeah, you're good. Pausing for a sec. So we've just come across the problem that the diaphragms, take some of the diaphragms out, they're actually stuck in the throat. So what we'll do, we'll just jam a little bit of WD-40 so that it sits around that base, and we'll just slowly try and get it to work. Stuck. It's a bit tight on the other one. What am I going to do there? Maybe let it sit for a bit. Might be a good idea. Try this one. At the bottom, the top. Which way? It comes out of here. That one's loosened up. And he's stuck too down in the emulsion tube. The needle is stuck down in there, so we'll just drop in there. come out. It's just varnish, old fuel varnish. You can actually see the crud and the crap where the top of the emulsion tube sits, and he just sits there, that line, but that'll come off. That's one of the things, and we're finding I've done a set out of America, and the set that came from America were full of that, I don't know, lacquer, I guess call it. So we'll go through later on, we'll go through and explain how to pull all that out of there. So we've got that one out of there. I'll have a go at this one now that he's been sitting for a bit. Wowzers. I'm going to do that. I'll just pause him for a second. So we've just taken the top off, or the bottom off, just to see what's holding the needle. And if you can see that clearly, that is, that's not good. But we'll continue on, and yeah, you'll be surprised how well this stuff comes up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the main jet out and see if we can. That came out reasonably well. Let's see. Pop the washer out that's underneath the main jet. And we might be able to persuade the jet and the emulsion tube to come out together. And maybe not. Just fill that. We'll just let that soak for a little bit.
Show them the other thing that you discovered about the diaphragms, Jeffrey. Using your torch.
Oh, well, we'll check the diaphragms. When you check the diaphragms, while we're waiting for that, when you're checking your diaphragms, what if you come in the light? Can you see that from there or not?
But you're going to put the torch on it.
So what we're looking for on the diaphragms while we're waiting is line marks. I'll have to zoom. There's wear marks, you'll see them. It's plain as day. So then you put a torch behind them and you can see the light. And that one's got a hole in it. 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 And that one's got a hole in it. So, and you also, apart from those wear lines that you will see, if you roll this up, roll the lip up, overzealous operators will clamp your top lid down so tight that it will cut that O-ring off the top. So roll your under the light, roll that back and make sure that hasn't been cut either. And you just fuel friendly, what's it called? Fuel friendly Celastic or 3-bond materials that you'll put under. You can just seal that light layer of that. We'll seal them up and you can use them if you don't have the money to replace them replace it brand new. So, and when you're pulling your carbs apart, if you roll your boots down like that, it just makes it a lot easier to store them, and they sit without distorting the rubber. So you can always give that a go too. What the hell is that? Piece off the T-piece. Jeez. So that's been soaking for a little bit. Let's try and... I really don't know. What are we going to do with that? I might just put that bowl back on there for a second. So I don't want to damage the floats while we're mucking around. Man, that's in there properly. So it looks like it's just going to be a matter of... That's tight, that's tight. It's probably going to be the sealed section here. So we might have to get a little bit sap happy and see if we can... It's moving slowly. What we're going to do with it when we get it out is going to be an issue. That is tight. We might just have to soak that one. Just put her on pause, we'll have to think about it. So we're going to go in from the top and we're going to take the circlip out where you adjust your needle height, and that way we can get the slide, hopefully the slide will come off the needle, and then we're not going to damage the slide, and we can just pop the emulsion tube and the needle out by itself. So we'll just get in here and try and get it to work. Yep, there we go. That one goes on number 2. So it's just a matter of popping that out as well. Hopefully those 2 bits will come out. And the slide still doesn't want to come out. Man. Alright. That didn't work. We'll have to think of something else. So we're going to try a torch. We've taken the choke rubber off, just to alleviate so we don't damage that. I'm just going to heat up around the outside here and try and expand the body away from the slide. We'll be replacing the butterfly shafts anyway, but they won't get that hot that it would damage them anyway. So, and there's obviously no petrol in it, so we don't need to worry about that too badly. So we'll just give it a light heat up and let it cool down and see what happens. We only need to heat that one little point up, that 10 or 15 mil is all we need to heat up, because the rest of the slide is in the air in the throat, so it's only going to be this section here, if it's that section at all. We need to give it a shit ton of air, heat. Try that, see what happens. Remembering one part of this is going to be hot now. There you go. So we needed. Cool. And you can actually, can you see down the throat the brown? There, you can see just old fuel lacquer. So, and that is going to be all through the carburetors, all through your air fuel, the little tiny little airways and everything. So, well, that's good. We got that. That's a win. Great. So we're just going to go through and pull the bowls apart, take all the jets out, take your floats off. Pulling these pins out is, you have to be delicate kids' fingers, because they snap, the posts will snap off. Like several blokes have used, or have seen it now over time. So they need to be fairly firm, and see that there's no give. So I'm just going to drop this in the vise just to hold it so that it can't go anywhere. You don't need, you don't want a centre pop, because you don't want to splay the end of the pin out. And just a really light tap, transfer it through the pin, and then it'll come out. So then that pulls that out, that takes your float out. There'll be a tiny little burr on, like, you'll get that resistance, and that's when it's in this end to stop the pin floating out. So get that out of there. And it's a 10mm spanner. Or a socket, whichever, to get that out of there. Now that's the needle and seat, your fuel needle, the fuel float needle and seat.
Socket is better.
Socket is better.
Because a spanner you can snap a post off.
Yep. You pop that out of there. These are nothing short of cactus, I suppose. That's just gummed up in there, something horrible. So we'll deal with that later. We might just move that up a bit. So we've got to try and get this idle cap out that's rusted on. Oh, well, there you go. It only looks horrible, was horrible, but yeah, that's cool. Might leave that for that. We need our special shaped screws again to get the idle jet from inside. Just going to feel around until it drops in the hole. There we go. That's all I do. And that came off easy as well, which is always a plus. That far, and that's as far as it wants to go. Press there, maybe. Man. It's to there and it doesn't want to come out. How are we going to do that? Yeah. Idle. Compressed air, but not everybody's got compressed air, so we can't use compressed air. So literally, it's floating up and down inside, but it gets to the threads for the idle jet cap and gets stuck on there for whatever reason. So,
Brass or steel?
huh?
Brass or steel?
Brass,
Of course. Non-magnetic, of course.
not magnetic. And you really can't, I don't think you'll be able to get something in there. To help it out, maybe. It's just there. There you go. Ooh.
There it is.
There it is. Cool. So this is a real reason you have square screwdrivers made to match the shape of that head, because you screw the top out of that, you're starting to hurt. So yeah, shaped screwdriver heads are the way to go. So that goes in there. Tap this out still. You can get a small enough screwdriver right onto the shaft of the outside edge of the emulsion tube. Pops that out. Woof. Nice. Not. Whether you can see that real well.
Yeah.
Nasty. All right, so we'll go through, pull all the other ones down. We'll come back to you.
Idle mixture screw. You haven't pulled that out yet, have you?
Yeah, that's what we just pulled out then. The idle screw. Oh, the idle mixture.
Hmm.
Well, that shouldn't be a hard problem. That's the great big one here on the front. That shouldn't be too hard at all. You pull that out. Now, this is, you just need to make sure it's got the nice fine taper tip on the end of it, and that will prove that it's not snapped off in there, thanks to previous owners. The difference between your idle screws on these carburetors, where your screw sits out the top, and this set of carburetors, where your idle screw is set down here inside, these are another animal. But when you pull the screw out of here, like, it's still got a taper on it, you've still got a spring on it, there's a washer on there, but down the bottom here is the tiniest O-ring. So you have a when you pull it apart, you're looking for 4 parts. You're looking for the screw, you're looking for the spring, you're looking for the little tiny washer that sits down here, and under the washer is an O-ring. So they are the 4 parts to, if your carburetor doesn't have these big screws on the end, it's going to have this system. So be careful of that the 4 parts inside there: screw, spring, washer, and your O-ring. So yeah, we'll go through and pull them apart now and come back. So before we go through and take the butterflies out, and you can probably do this at the point when you pull your choke system apart. You just get a small jewellery screwdriver. You just want to feed it down through the hole. So this is only 1 and 4 because you're after the little tiny spring that was in holding the indent ball on your choke shaft. So that's how you grab that, just a little screwdriver, pull that spring out. He goes in with your indent spring, and then same again with number 4. Feed him through and just pull him out. Do that at the time when you're doing this. Otherwise you might find that they go whistling across the bench or the floor at some point in time. So we're coming to removing your butterflies and taking the seals out. How are we going to do this? I've shown before on different videos. Does that work, that you can see? Can you see the colour around the edge of the shaft, where the shaft itself is clear, and then towards the top gets dark, and you move it around, so either side, right where the shaft is itself, it's clear, and the rest of it's covered in black. That means air is coming up your butterfly shaft past your seals. So you're not getting the right air fuel mix as what you think you should be. So we're going to take your butterflies out, we'll take the shafts out and the seals as well. So that's where we're up to now. So before you get too carried away, you want to get yourself a measuring stick, and you want to go in the back of the shaft, in the back of the carburetor to the butterfly shaft, and you want to take that reading, whatever that is. It's about 86 or 87 millimeters, and you cut yourself a piece of broom handle that's 86 or 87 or 88 millimeters long. You drop that in there so it's the same length as your carburetor. So when you drop it down like so, and you get your screwdriver, when you're leaning on the screws to undo them, you're not actually bending the shaft. So we'll just go through JIS screwdriver. Do not use a Phillips head screwdriver, you will lose. Invest in a Phillips head. 20 or 30 bucks on eBay is all they are. Righto. So it's just a matter of putting your shoulder into it. Most of the time they come undone. Now, there is one other stop I just forgot, but we'll just crack it, get it open. Righto. That's why you need that little block in there to transfer the weight through. Now that they're cracked, when you fold them open, and this is going to be really hard to get on camera because it is just so fine, but if you look, oh, maybe you can even see that. If you look down the throat, you can see on the end of the screw there's a factory knurl, whatever you want to call it, just a little damage to stop the screw coming out of the butterfly if it comes undone. So you need to file those off before you unscrew it, or you'll damage the thread running through your shaft. So that's your next step. The easiest way to do that is with a Dremel. If you don't have a Dremel, and we're doing this no tools, no anything, I have in the past done this. Grab your screwdriver, and you bring it out to where where the screwdriver loads up. You bring it out, you roll it back. You bring it out, you roll it back. You roll it out, you roll it back. You bring it out, you roll it back. You bring it out, you roll it back in. You bring it out, you roll it in. You bring it out, you bring it in. You roll it out, you bring it in, bring it out, take it back, bring it out, roll it in, bring it out, roll it in, bring it out, until it comes out. And what you are doing, you are slowly, instead of dragging the thread damage through, you are actually reshaping the thread. Bring it out a little bit, roll it in, bring it out. You are actually reshaping the thread and just bringing the factory knurl off the top. So you can do it that way, but you just have to be gentle and patient. Back, forwards. Just bring a little bit of load, take it off. A little bit of load, take it off, and just go backwards and forwards. You don't want to rush it. In, out, in. And really, if you wanted, and it probably would pay anyway, just drop a bit of lubricant on it. WD-40, it's what we use in Australia, whatever you use in your part of the world, just to lubricate the thread up a little bit. So in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, and you get to the point where it'll just pop out undamaged, screws undamaged. I wouldn't use them again. I don't use them again if I've done that. I don't use them anyway. They are 3 by 0.5, so they're a 3mm screw and they're a 0.5 pitch screw. So go get yourself, well, you need 8 of them, but get yourself 10 or 15 and then you have them. So before you take the butterfly out, we need to remove your nut and everything that's on the end of your carburetor shaft. So small hammer, they've got keeper plates on them. So knock your keeper plate down. 12mm spanner, 12mm socket. Where'd it go here? 12mm socket. So you'll find, oh, that's good. It's going to stay at home. So 12mm socket on the end of your nut. Most of the time, it'll just pop off. So now from here, I would suggest that you do one carburetor at a time, because each of these carburetors goes a different way. So that's number one. But look at number one to number two. So you need to do one carburetor at a time, because they've got plastic wear plates, brass washers in different spots to make everything center all the time. So if you're doing it at home, you have them all set, just do one at a time, just so you don't create too much of a headache. And you just, as you pull it off, it takes some doing these ones. These ones are just full of crap. So when you're at home, put your nut, that came off next, your spring, like I say, you've got a little one, the brass washers on this side of the carburetor, so he goes on that side. Now you pop your, you can just pull your butterfly out. I again use my little piece of dowel up through the bottom, get everything to hold it, and then you just tap it down with your, and it just pops out. That's how it does. So that's your butterfly, and then your shaft just pops out like so, and there you have it. So, and this one, that's your seal, that's the little seal, that's your butterfly seal sitting hard up on there, whereas one of your other carburetors will have this brass washer will be on this side sometimes. So you need to pull carburetors apart one by one when you're doing this and do it. So that's how that works. And that's as hard as, you can't even squash that. So that's well and truly on the way gone. So that's how you do that. And if you really want to, you can lay it out as it sits there and how it came off and take a photo, because if you do it tomorrow, go home and have tea, come back out in the morning and you're going, ooh. So to save any woo moments, take a photo of it, and that might help you as well. Now that it's you've got it this far apart, it's number 4, 3, 2, 1. Everything's apart. I forgot to tell you about taking the choke mechanism out. So the choke mechanism is your 14 millimeter nut. It sits in here. So it's just a matter of 14 millimeter socket is best, because as we said before with spanners. So that just pops out, and then you have that little piece of rubber there as well over your choke shaft. So, but yeah, and there's a little spring on there. So that's a pretty easy thing to get out normally. The nut normally comes undone reasonably easily. If they're off a running motorcycle, this shaft always comes out anyway. But I have had one where I sheared the end of it off, and back then I didn't know too much at all. I think it went in the bin. So yeah, pop your choke shaft out. Now it's a matter of, you've got it this far down, just go through and wash it best you can. Get all your crap off it, all your dirt and your dust and your oil and your lumpy bits. Get it all off, wash them up as best you can. All your parts, your bowls, everything. Wash them up as best as you can. I'll give you a couple of tips as we're cleaning up inside for the brass and the floats. Yeah, just go through and clean them up now. Keep it 1, 2, 3, 4. And just wash everything. Bring it back to what you're happy with. And then we'll show you how we do the inside after that.